Hello everybody and welcome to Igor's Japanese Language Dojo and to my conditional series, or to be even more precise, to my third episode that will deal with the conditional ba. Now, if you have missed my previous episode that have dealt with the conditional to, I will leave the link in the description below as always so you can watch it and catch up. However, if you are already caught up, and you know everything that you need to know about to, then I suggest that you stick around with me and continue to explore the conditional ba. So without further ado, let's get cracking and see what this conditional is all about. Okay, so what do we need to know about ba that we consider as basic knowledge? Well, we first must know how to attach it. When we talk about verbs and when we are using verbs to form this conditional, we first need to get the verb stem, the potential verb stem, and only then we can add ba. In case you are still struggling with this, I have created a video that is dealing with verb stems, and I will leave a link to it in the description below and in the card thing in the upper right corner. Now, if verbs are not something that you're dealing with, if you are not using a verb in your sentence when you want to create the ba conditional and you are using some other word type, then usually suffixes are used here. Now, the second thing that you need to remember is that ba is often translated into English as if. There are also other translations such as and or when or as long as, especially, but those are not very frequent, and I would like to say that if you remember ba as if, it will save you a whole lot of grief and it will make the entire studying process easier. So once again, you can use alternative translations to help you in your studying process, but I personally recommend if. Now, the third thing that you need to remember is that ba is frequently shown with negative conditions and then it translates to unless. The fourth thing is that the conditional ba focuses more on the condition than on the result, and you will notice this, let's say, subtle change of focus and of highlight in a sentence whenever you use ba, because it will be something that you will easily detect, because the conditional ba is always stressing what is the trigger that needs to be fulfilled in order for the result to happen. So naturally, your mind and your eyes will be drawn to that first part of the sentence, to the ba clause. After that, you should know also that ba is commonly used to express habits, general truths, hypothetical situations, and results. Now, if you have watched my previous video on to, you can also notice that to is also used to express habits, and in this regard there is not much difference between the two, except that to grants that habit a certain dosage of inevitability and sometimes immediacy. So there are those subtle differences, but if you use both ba and to express a certain habit, you won't make any mistakes and there will be no problems in using it. But if you want to, let's say, take into consideration all of the nuances that you might come across or that you want to convey, then I suggest thinking in that direction. And finally, you should know that the ba conditional can often be paired with noni to describe a regrettable outcome. So all of these 6 points are the most vital information that you need to know about the ba before proceeding further. So you should know that ba is always used to express habits, general truths, hypothetical situations, and results. There is also the pairing with noni to describe a regrettable outcome, and that ba has a subtle focus on the condition in the sentence rather than on the result. And also, if you are really good at English grammar and that you have already mastered all of the conditionals in the English language, you can also notice from all of this information presented here that ba is equivalent to the zero conditional in English, to the first conditional, and the third conditional. Now, of course, you will see this reflected in our examples, but for now, it will be, let's say, enough to mention these things. So please remember and keep in mind that whenever you want to express a certain habit, you can use ba or to, there will be no mistakes. Then you should also remember that ba is used for general truths, hypothetical situations, and results, or if you want to be more precise, future results. But now with this information out of the way, we will proceed to the next section of the video where I will show you how to attach ba to various words in the Japanese language. Now, let's see this formation process. Now, if you want to attach ba to a noun, I have decided to use kuruma here as an example. In case of a positive condition, you must use deareba. So we will have kuruma deareba. You can see that highlighted here with olive green. However, if you want to present a negative condition, then you should use denakereba, and you can see that highlighted with orange here. Now, if you are using an na adjective, I have decided to use kyoryoku na here, meaning powerful. Then there is another set of suffixes that you need to remember. So in case of a positive condition, you should use deareba, and we will get kyoryoku deareba. However, if you need a negative condition, then you should use kyoryoku de nakereba. Now, in the case of the I adjectives, I have decided to use takai, and once I want to get a certain positive condition, and I would then use kereba. So I will eliminate the final I from takai and receive takakereba. But if I need the negative condition, then I will turn the final I to ku and then attach nakereba, so I will receive takaku nakereba. Now the fourth word group are the Godan verbs, and you can see here that the formation process is relatively easy. You need to change the final ru kana to re in case of toru here, and only then attach ba. So I have received toreba. However, if you need a negative condition, then you should change that to the negative form, but eliminate the final I and add kereba. So you will receive torana kereba. Now, in the case of Ichidan verbs, you can also notice here a change, and the verb taberu, meaning to eat, will receive its positive condition by first removing the final ru and adding reba, so we will get tabereba. However, if you need a negative condition, then you will need to add be nakereba in this case, and you will receive tabe nakereba. And finally, we have the irregular verbs, and those are kuru and suru. So in the case of kuru, we have kuoreba and konakereba. After that, we have sureba and shinakereba. So as you can see here, all of these word types are heavily dependent on various suffixes in order to use ba correctly. So in case of verbs, you always need to form the potential stem and only then add ba. In the case of I adjectives, you need to remove the final I and add kereba in case of a positive condition. However, if you need a negative condition, then you need to change it, the final I to be more precise, to ku, and add only then add nakereba. You will also notice here that the na adjectives and the nouns share absolutely the same suffixes, and this will help you to master the ba conditional more easily in their cases. So this is pretty much it. You always need to know how to form the positive and the negative conditional, because you never know when you will need to use one of them. Now let's see some of the examples of the ba conditional. Nihon reikishi ni tsuite hon wo mitsukereba kaimasu. If I find a book about Japanese history, I will buy it. Now, this is our first sentence here, and you can see here that I have highlighted the trigger or the conditional with orange, while I have underlined the result, and finally I have highlighted ba here as the conditional with olive green. Now here this orange part is very long and this is the focus of the ba conditional and you can feel it in the sentence. So this is the condition that must be fulfilled in order for our speaker, for us here, to buy that book. The book must be about Japanese history, otherwise we will not buy it. And also another thing that you should remember here is that we do not have a time reference and there is no sequence to the events here, no immediate sequence to the events like we had with the to conditional in our previous video. Now our second sentence is a bit different. Paris ni ikeba itsumo Eiffel to otozuremasu. Whenever I go to Paris, I always visit the Eiffel Tower. Now here I have decided to give you an example of a habit that is, let's say, always occurring once our speaker goes to Paris. So whenever he goes to Paris, he is always visiting the Eiffel Tower. You can always strengthen this habit by adding words such as itsumo, meaning always, to say that you are always doing something regularly once the condition has been fulfilled. And here that condition is the trip to Paris. So once again in our second sentence we are seeing the example of a habit, but this time we have decided to use ba instead of to. And notice once again that there is no time reference. And let's see our third sentence. 毎日一生懸命に勉強すれば試験に合格します. If you study hard every day, you will pass the exam. As you can see here, once again, we have balanced out the trigger and the result. So we are basically saying what you need to do in our first clause, in the ba clause, in order for the second clause to happen. We are saying that you should study hard every day in order to pass your exams. So here we have a simple condition, meaning if this happens, the second thing will happen, and there is nothing, let's say, inherently complicated here. And there is also no time reference. We are just saying that you need to study every day, but here the action is not something that is timed. And finally, we have a little bit more complicated sentence, and let's see how it goes. Osaka iki no Shinkansen ni noreba Yamada-san no kangei-kan ni maniaimasu. If you take the Shinkansen bound for Osaka, you will be in time for Mr. Yamada's welcoming party. As you can see here, once again we have the trigger and the result. The trigger is highlighted with orange and the result has been underlined. So we are here clearly expressing what does need to happen in order for our result to be achieved. So only if we take that specific Shinkansen that is bound for Osaka, only then we can make it in time for Yamada's welcoming party. So we are always basically saying what will be the result of our action here, what is the result of the fulfilled trigger here, and that is the boarding of the train that is bound for Osaka, and that result is the coming in time for Mr. Yamada's welcoming party. As you can see from all of these sentences here, there is no specific or inherent time reference to the ba conditional. We are just basically saying what is that necessary trigger in order for our result to happen. And as you can see here, those triggers vary from the trip to Paris that is acting as a trigger for our habit to some of more, let's say, complicated ones, such as the boarding of the train in our last sentence. That is the trigger for us to making in time to Mr. Yamada's party. So that is pretty much it for this section. Now let's learn how to use the ba conditional to express the negative condition. Well, our first sentence here will tell you basically all that you need to know about the ba conditional when we want to use it in this manner. 新部員を募集しなければ書道部が閉まります. If we do not recruit new members, the calligraphy club will close. So here you can pretty much deduce by yourself what is the negative condition, and that is this first part of the sentence, or the ba clause of the sentence, if we do not recruit new members. And as you can already notice here, and as you have noticed from our previous examples, once again here the relationship between the condition and the result is strong because we are saying here with ba something that must be done in order for the second part of the sentence to be true. Or in this case, this process of the recruitment must be carried out in order to prevent our club, our calligraphy club, from shutting down. Now our second sentence further elaborates on this and follows the same pattern. Kono kimono wa ao nakereba kaimasen. And you can already translate this quite easily into, if this kimono is not blue, I will not buy it. So once again, the negative condition has been highlighted with orange, and it is the first clause of our sentence. Kono kimono wa ao nakereba. Our third sentence is the most complicated one, but it also follows the same pattern as our previous two sentences. Shuei ni ID card o misenakereba naito kurabu ni hairemasen. If you do not show your ID to the guard, you can't enter the nightclub. And you can already see here what is the negative condition or the trigger and what is the result. So here the trigger or the negative condition is shuei ni ID card o misenakereba, while the result is naito kurabu ni hairemasen. And finally, we have shuden ni noranakereba jitaku ni hikikaesemasen. If you do not board the last train, you will not be able to come back home. So you can already see here that the trigger here is that shuden ni noranakereba, while the result is jitaku ni hikikaesemasen. So you can already see here what is the most important thing from all of these four sentences that you need to remember when you want to express the negative condition. Well, the most important thing is, in my opinion still, is that the condition must be changed into its appropriate form. So once again, if you are still struggling with it, I suggest that you return back to our previous section on the formation process to familiarize yourself even deeper with the appropriate suffixes that are needed to be used with ba. However, if you already have understood that perfectly, then there really is nothing else to be noted here. So we can move on to our next video section. Now, with the positive and the negative conditions out of our way, let's see how should we use the ba conditional to convey a hypothetical situation, a situation that is unreal. Well, our first sentence illustrates this perfectly. Moshi kanemochi de areba yotto o kaimasu. If I were rich, I would buy a yacht. As you can already notice here, we have added moshi to the beginning of the sentence, and there is a big difference in the relationship between the trigger and the result, or between the condition and the result. Now first, moshi is just an supplement, an addition to our conditional sentences that can be used to introduce them and to really strengthen that meaning of uncertainty that hides behind our conditions. And you can use that pretty effectively because moshi is very versatile, but I certainly recommend it and urge you to use moshi in these types of sentences, especially if your condition has a very slim chance of coming true or if it is unreal, making moshi perfect for sentences such as this. And you can also notice here that we are referencing the situation from our current point in time, meaning that we are currently not rich and we cannot buy a yacht, but however, if we were rich, we would buy a yacht. So, to be concise, the most important thing that you need to note here is the usage of moshi to strengthen this sentence, this conditional sentence, and to even give more punch to that uncertainty in our sentence. And also, you should note how we are referencing a certain situation that is not real. Now, our second sentence follows the steps of the first one and also expresses something that is hypothetical. Moshi takai kuruma o motteba urimasu. If I had an expensive car, I would sell it. As you can see here, once again, we have included the supplement Moshi to open our conditional sentence, and we are saying here basically that if we have an expensive car, we would resell it to get more money. But since we do not have, this sentence is a hypothetical one, and that is why we are using here ba and not any other conditional, because the entire situation is hypothetical. So when it comes to these unreal situations, I really strongly urge you to use Moshi to introduce your conditional sentences, and of course bear in mind the connection between the condition and the result. Now let's see something different by pairing up our ba conditional with noni. Now pay attention to the tone of this sentence. その問題について助けを求めれば助けてあげたのに. If you had asked for help about that problem, I would have helped you. As you can already guess, here we are expressing a certain dose of regret over a situation that has happened, because this person here in question has not asked for our help regarding a certain problem, although we would have gladly helped that person if he or she would have asked for that help in the first place. So you can see here that we have attached noni at the very end of the sentence to signify and to even strengthen that notion of regret. So this is also one of the more common usages of ba. And our final sentence also shows another example of this. 知れば仙台行きの電車に乗ったのに. If I had known, I would have boarded the train for Sendai. So once again, we have created ba here, the ba conditional, by changing the verb shiru to shireba, and after that we have added noni at the very end of the sentence to illustrate that regret. So as you can see from this ba conditional usage for hypothetical situations, you should bear in mind a couple of things. First, the inclusion of moshi to even more strengthen that notion of uncertainty and that vagueness that is considered to be an integral part of the conditions when used in this hypothetical manner. And also you always need to remember that if you want to express regret over a certain action that has happened, you always need to add noni at the end of the sentence. But other than that, there is really nothing much more to say about this usage of the ba condition except to be wary for that. So once again, I know that I am probably boring already with this. I strongly suggest that you use moshi to introduce your sentences, your conditional sentences, in order to create hypothetical situations or to convey them, whatever do you need. So those are my recommendations, and I of course suggest that you practice them through numerous examples. And finally, let's deal the finishing blow to our second conditional and to our third episode in the conditional series. Now, we have learned today that the ba conditional is really the classic conditional. It is equivalent to the English zero conditional, the first and the third conditional. That is something that is really floating around the internet lately, because everyone is trying to learn the ba conditional in this way, and I don't see really a problem with it. Also, we can see in our sentences, and we have learned from our examples, that the conditional ba often focuses more on the condition and stresses the importance of that condition against the result. So it is basically saying that unless the clause A happens, the clause B will never happen. And also, to further elaborate on this point, there is really no time relationship with the ba conditional to be considered. It is not that important. The only thing that is important is that if the condition happens, or whenever it happens, then the result will happen. So really there is no time sequence or a certain temporal relationship that you need to consider, like with tara and to, and that makes the ba conditional slightly easier to use, or to discern when to use the ba conditional and not any of the other conditionals. So that is my advice to you. Whenever you are trying to determine which conditional to use, always consider the temporal relationship between the clauses. And if that temporal relationship is very strong, then you should use to. Of course, if every other option is satisfied for that usage, or if there is also a slight connection or unbreakable connection between the two clauses, you can also use tara, but that is the topic for our next video, so I will cover that then. For now, you just need to remember that ba focuses on the condition, the temporal relationship is not so important, and that you can use it to express future results, hypothetical situations, habits, and of course general truths. So this is pretty much it for the ba conditional. I have considered adding here another section of the video that will research and present in more detail the differences between ba and tara, but I figured that I should cover tara first and then reference all the differences that come up when you should determine whether to use ba or tara. So more on that in the next video that will deal with the hardest of the conditionals in my opinion for a Japanese language learner, especially if you have just broken up into the intermediate tier. And that is all, my dear Shoku no Otsukare-sama deshita. Thank you for watching this third video and my own summary of the second conditional in my conditional series about ba. Also, you can find an older video of mine that deals with ba in my video list. I will provide the link to that video in the description below, and I would just like to suggest that in terms of the conditional use, I would strongly advise you to refer to this video because that video is a bit outdated, but in case you are looking for some additional constructs to learn or something new to practice with your knowledge of ba, I do suggest that you reference that video, especially the later parts, so you can learn some more useful constructs that use ba and that can really boost up your game in Japanese. So other than that, I really thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope to see you again in the dojo next time when we cover the conditional tara. So, otsukare-sama deshita once again, and sayonara!